Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of No More Some Days. We are just getting started here. We had something come up, so we're getting started just a few minutes late. Thanks for your patience. Tonight we're going to be talking about when our journey started with healthy living and kind of when it became important to us, and why it's so important to us now. So we're so excited that you all are joining us.
Yeah.
So do you want to start with talking about your story first?
I mean, I can give a background and we can get into details later. So when did healthy living begin to be important to me? I think probably around the time I was 12 or 13, it started to be more evident, growing up. When I was younger, from what I can remember, I was, just a normal kid, thin, active. We ate a pretty normal diet, pretty healthy for the most part. We couldn't have any fun cereals, Cocoa Krispies or Reese Puffs. My favorite cereal when we went to my grandparents was the only time we got to have the good cereals, and was Cocoa Krispies, was my favorite. But I guess it was around 10 or 11, maybe 12, I started to get a little chunkier, if you will. I remember one of the most embarrassing things to me was when we would go shopping, I'd have to wear these husky size pants. And that was like the nice way of saying you're fat, basically, was the husky size, which is just an interesting conversation on how we try to, soften the blow a little bit of reality sometimes. I don't even think they have husky size anymore. That's probably too mean. But anyway, and so then I really started to get interested in, why am I like this? What am I doing wrong? And then getting into your teenage years, it becomes even more important, especially from, you want to look healthy, you want to look active, you want to look a certain way. And so I think it was when I was 13, I'm maybe not remembering correctly, but I went a whole year without eating any desserts, no exceptions. There was no desserts that I ate for the whole year. And I really wanted to test myself on whether or not I could do that and what difference it would make and whether or not I could develop the self-control to be able to do that. And so that was a really big step that, maybe was a little drastic, but at least for me at the time, it was something that I wanted to prove to myself that, I could resist the temptation of those desserts that, at least in my mind, were a big factor in how I was feeling and how I was looking. And so kind of from then on, it's always been, healthy living has always been an important thing. And I think at least, it's easy. I think we all have different struggles. We all have tendencies, whether, maybe you're predisposed to be tempted in certain areas. And I think, health is eating a certain way is like that for certain people, or more of a temptation. And I think, that's something I've continued to struggle with, and I wouldn't say I've ever been 100% happy with where I am. It's a constant battle, a constant thing that I'm striving after to learn more about and get better at. But yeah, I'd say, just to answer the first question, probably when I was 13 was about the time it really started being important to me.
Interesting question, and feel free to not answer if he hasn't had any time to prepare for this, guys. But how do you balance, like, I'm not where I want to be yet with my health, and loving your body and appreciating it for what it is right now? Because God made us. Even if we are overweight, God made us. So our bodies aren't trash. They are fearfully and wonderfully made. However, there are things that we need to strive after to maintain as best physical health as we can and take care of the bodies that God gave us.
I don't think it's healthy to be at a place of self-loathing or self-destruction or tearing yourself down, because that just tends to make things worse and you can spiral out of control. Mm-hmm. But I do think there's a danger to this culture that we've seen the past few years of promoting and acting like every body type is healthy and every 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 range of health is acceptable and should be strived after, and you shouldn't have to change. Because yes, I may be at a certain place now, but I have the capability to get better.
Right.
If I shouldn't be happy if I'm in an unhealthy situation. I shouldn't be happy with that state. I should be trying to improve, and there's this, I think, this culture now of accepting that we should just be satisfied where we're at, and if there's we should never be mean or I think we should have sympathy with people who have health struggles, but we have to move forward. So I don't know, that's a tough one, because when I was in places that I wasn't happy with where I was, there was self-loathing, there was criticism, there was maybe even to a certain extent self-hatred of where you're at.
Right.
And then the other part of that is sometimes you need that motivation of, I don't like where I'm at, to get you down the road to get better. So I think
I've had it kind of moment.
So I think you can be thankful for the potential your body has. You can be thankful for that you still have the measure of health you do, but you have to be unsatisfied with where you are.
Yeah, it's a really tricky one, and that's, part of the reason I ask, because I do think it's an important question, and loving our bodies and appreciating them for what they do provide for us,
but I think that's
and everything is important.
Yeah, but you have to. Are you appreciating what your body does for you if you're not treating it well? Like, we appreciate if I appreciate my car, but I don't ever get the oil changed, I don't ever rotate the tires, I leave a bunch of junk in it. Am I really being appreciative for it? Am I really grateful for it? Am I really thankful for it? Because it's a nice car and it has a lot of potential, but if I just run it into the ground, was I really thankful? Was I really appreciative? So if you really are appreciative of your body, if you really are thankful, if you are grateful, then we probably should be treating our body in a different way. And I think the other thing that we run into sometimes is, I don't know what to do, or my body's just the way it is, or we say it's just genetics. And yes, there's a component of genetics. You can't deny that our genetics are a certain way. We're predisposed to certain things. Yeah. But that doesn't give us an excuse to not figure it out. I remember when I was younger, I would say, all my cousins were pretty athletic. They were into sports. They were all thin, and my body wasn't that way. And I would think, why? How is this fair? They can eat whatever they want. They can eat ice cream. They can eat chicken fingers. They can drink Cokes. And if I do that, I'm gonna blow up. I'm gonna look like a blowfish. And
blowfish.
It doesn't.
What an interesting.
But the reality is, it doesn't matter about them. It doesn't matter what they're doing. That isn't my reality. And so I could either complain about that until I'm 50 and die of a heart attack, or I can say, okay, my body, I have to treat it a different way.
Right.
I have to use different methods. I have to, be more cognizant of what I'm eating. And
sorry, not to interrupt.
Just to finish that thought, the reality is, a lot of people's metabolisms may be that way until they're 21, 22.
That's what.
But then it there's a switch, something happens, and if you haven't built those
do that forever.
Good habits up front, it's gonna be a lot harder to switch to. Now all of a sudden I'm gonna start caring about my health and eating healthy. Well, if you've built habits to eat whatever you want for 25 years, that's gonna be a lot harder road and a lot harder to change.
And we've seen that with one of your cousins who saw that they were headed down a not healthy path with their habits and decided to change that, and totally changed the game for him. And he's a huge success story in that way too. So it doesn't mean that it's too late to change it at any point. No. It just means that
it might be harder.
It might be harder, if you don't. And so what a blessing that was that did happen, so that you started to get into those healthy habits earlier. Even though you saw it as a child, like, this is so unfair, this is so frustrating, why can't I do what they are able to do? But in fact, it was a blessing in that way. So I kind of have, I wouldn't say the opposite story, but I kind of have, I was that kid that was usually really skinny no matter what I ate, usually didn't have a weight issue or didn't think that I did. I remember one summer, I think I was 14 or 15, I got on this certain medication because I was dealing with a certain health issue. And I lost like 15 pounds that summer or something. It was crazy. And I remember my grandmother, she's a seamstress, and so she was making me some clothes. I really wanted her to make some like skirts and stuff, so I picked out the fabric and all the stuff and the patterns. And she measured me before I left for the camp that I went to that summer, and then she measured me like sometime when I got back. And she was like, whoa, we're gonna have to change some of these because you've lost so much weight. So she did it, so she made them in such a way that or she made the changes in such a way that you could always let it out later in case I gained the weight back. But but it was kind of amazing how fluctuating my body was in that way. And for me, I have autoimmune diseases, if you know that about me. So weight gain and weight loss can happen very rapidly for me. So when I had graduated from college and we got married after my junior year, but after I graduated, I noticed that I gained a lot of weight. And you think about it, you're a college student, maybe you're not eating as much, you're on the go. I definitely wasn't making great eating choices. Definitely was just eating whatever I wanted and felt like in that moment. I deal with a lot, especially in the morning, a lot of like, I'll just naturally just feel like sick to my stomach. I don't want to eat a lot in the morning. Like I've been that way for years. And so, I remember in college, just eating and picking up whatever I could, because a lot of the time, like I just wouldn't feel like eating. And so to gain a lot of weight after I graduated really kind of threw me off. And so, I was encouraged to, hey, think about the fact that you have autoimmune diseases and start to get a hold on things. And so, it was something I definitely tried to work on and off for several years, but I really just didn't have a lot of success with it. And mostly because my heart wasn't in it and I didn't really feel like I had the right situation, I guess I should say. I tried to like download an app, or I went to Weight Watchers for years, things like that. And it just really wasn't the kind of community and the kind of things that I think I really honestly needed. But the biggest thing is like kind of what Matt referenced, like that resolve, that discipline, because that's the thing, that's the difference that it takes. It's just discipline. And think about it, if you have discipline in one area of your life, you can have discipline in other areas. And I definitely had discipline in other areas, like I would practice, or I'd, be diligent about my studies or whatever it is. And so it took until after I graduated with my master's, and again, I had gained a bunch of weight and was really frustrated. But even more frustrating was like my health, which I was just having a lot of issues. And so it really forced me to start to get serious about, what I was putting on in my body. And so it really took, I think I was maybe 27 at that point, to really start to get serious about what I was going to eat, how I was going to view food, and not just throw whatever into my body that was good at the time. And so now, I just have a fresh perspective that, I didn't always, and we didn't grow up, my parents did allow us to eat the sugary cereals, but I don't think they were bad parents because they did that. They were amazing. But my mom especially, not that my dad didn't, but my mom just especially would like try to encourage us to eat healthier things, try different foods, especially vegetables. My dad loved to serve us, what are those beans called? Lima beans. So there you go, lima beans. Lots of those in our household. Or like get us to, try wheat bread or something like that, a little healthier of an option. But I just was always very resistant to that. And so it wasn't necessarily from a lack of trying. But anyway, so, I'm grateful for the journey, but,
Did you ever feel any pressure from being a girl, especially going through high school and college, to maintain being slimmer? Maybe it wasn't as much of a struggle for you, but did you ever feel that pressure of trying to maintain a certain look from being a girl and being a woman?
I don't know that I always thought about it from a female perspective.
Like you talk, like what you see again, like a lot of, at least what it seems like, most of the eating disorders are usually women that struggle with. Right. I don't know if you saw that with any of your friends or any of your group, of trying to go to extreme measures to try, because we often feel, we talk about overeating and being overweight, but there's also like the opposite struggle of,
correct,
being too thin.
Correct. Yeah, so I didn't have any friends that I knew of that were struggling with that particular issue. No one comes to mind. No situation like that really came to mind where we were like, oh, I'm only eating salads today. Like that wasn't really a thing. I think for my friend group, I had a friend in grad school who was a vegetarian, but I don't think it was necessarily because of weight reasons that she chose to do that. I will say though, yes, I mean there's maybe you could say weight is encompassed in that, but that there is an aspect of, okay, I'm a woman and I want, especially like, you know, you want to be seen as a certain way, not just by women, but also by men, that, you know, you look attractive. And so that's part of it. I think for me, I was often worried not so much about the weight and more worried, most of the time was more worried about like my hair or my makeup or my clothes, because I felt like those were a lot more inadequate, and just being totally transparent here, than necessarily my weight most of the time. But I will say I had a roommate who was very different in her eating than I was, and I noticed that about her, and I was honestly a little concerned for her because of that, and it worried me sometimes, because not only was she overweight, but she was continuing to eat in a way and not be very active, and I just was concerned for her that maybe, you know, so I don't know if we ever really had many conversations. I maybe talked to her about it like once, but that wasn't, I feel like, really a unique female thing per se. Anyways, so transitioning a little bit, how would you say that you live, or what kind of healthy habits do you have? Maybe some tips or some perspective shifts that you have now, that how you live your life, or even you could speak specifically to your adult life. Like, how did you live differently in college than maybe your friends and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, in college, you know, my friends group kind of was still, or they were still those people who, at least on that outside, seemed to not struggle with weight. But I always had a certain diet that I was trying to, not necessarily like I was on a keto diet or low carb diet, but I was always very cognizant of what I was eating, and I would only have dessert or splurge on a certain day or certain, you know, special occasions. But I think what I've realized more, even getting into married life and adult life, is the correlation between like your body, your mind, spirit, and how those all affect each other.
Right.
That if I'm staying healthy physically, I'm going to feel better in interaction with people. I'm going to be more confident. I'm going to be more present. I'm going to be able to be more assertive. I'm going to be able to have that inner integrity that we've talked about, that I'm not just professing something, I'm not just talking about something, but hopefully by how I'm showing up, even physically, people can see that, you know, I have self-respect for me, that I'm showing up in a way that I can be who I want to be in that area. And I think that affects all areas of our life. And even I think how we show up, I think a discussion that we don't have a lot in the church is how does our physical health affect how we show up spiritually? And I think, you know, you touched on discipline. We talk a lot about discipline in our churches, but does our discipline carry over into how we keep track of our bodies and are healthy? And I think, you know, that's a really important thing we should think about is, I'm professing to be disciplined. I'm professing to not partake of certain things that are bad for me. I'm professing to be faithful to my spouse. I'm professing to be disciplined in what I put into my mind and into my body. Right. Well, am I doing that health-wise? Am I putting the good food into my body? Am I making it active? I mean, our bodies are made for movement. We can't just sit here. Sitting 8-10 hours a day is bad for us. Right. God created our bodies to move, to be active. So are we giving our bodies what we want or what they want?
What they need, yeah.
And, you know, think about how much better we could show up spiritually and have more energy if we took care of our bodies better. And so for me, I think in my adult life, you know, for me, I know that I'm always going to have to challenge myself, because it's easy to just go to a place of complacency. So I know that I always need to be not just, you know, maybe a topic for another discussion is how maybe sometimes my workout has been too prioritized, but it's always, I always make sure I go to the gym 4 or 5 times a week. And then I always try to make sure that I have a goal that I'm shooting for, whether that's racing Spartan races or otherwise, that I'm always have something out ahead of me that I'm working towards that's going to help me be accountable. You know, and sometimes I've used a friend to help that's going to run those races with me or whatever it might be, or working out with people. But they're always, at least for me, and that's knowing yourself, knowing what pushes you. It's important for me to have that accountability, that because I know that if I sign up for a race in 2 months and if I don't race, I'm going to be embarrassed for myself. So I know that I have to put in the work to get there. So that's really important to me as well.
Yeah, I love that. You touched on so many good things there. I think the important thing too is, you know, kind of going back to what you said at the very beginning, if we value something, like, you know, we value our marriage, so we're going to pour into it. We're going to spend time with it. And if I neglect you and I don't spend any time trying to build our relationship and I prioritize many other things over you, then eventually the relationship's going to break down and break down and break down. And I think the same thing goes with our body, the relationship we have with our body. Like, we can't just treat it like, you know, put it by the wayside and never prioritize it and then hope everything turns out okay. And that doesn't mean that, you know, you're going to magically be to where you want to be, but it does mean, like you said, that you can have goals and you can keep working toward what is your next level of health? What does that look like for you? Maybe it's not exactly where you want to be yet, but is it that you're swapping out some better options for your breakfast? Or is it going for a walk 30 minutes a day or whatever it is, and kind of making some of those small shifts already? One of the big things that Matt taught me in our marriage is I want to have all the snack things around that are not healthy. And he was always encouraging me to not buy the things, and then it won't be an issue. And so I've gotten better about that. Not perfect, but better about that kind of thing.
So maybe we'll step on some toes here, but I wanted to talk about, there seems to be a tendency that once people get married, then it's like, then their health starts to sort of decline. And there's almost, and not in every case, but there almost seems to be a social acceptance that, okay, now we're in our, you know, starting to get 30 years old. Now, from here on out, it's going to go badly. From here on out, you know, we're going to continue to decline. And
do you think people are consciously thinking that, though? Because I feel like they're not consciously thinking that. They're just like, oh, I'm just going about my life.
I don't know. I think it's said, though. It's said because you'll hear people say, you know, the aches, the pains, man, it's just not what it used to be. There's this almost acceptance that I'm not going to be healthy anymore, or it's okay that it's going to be worse. And obviously, yes, as we get older, at a certain point, our bodies are going to start deteriorating, but it's almost this acceptance that it's okay to accelerate this. It's okay that I'm going to gain 20, 30 pounds. We have kids now. We're married now. I'm getting older. I'm prioritizing my work. And it's kind of this inevitability that when I reach 35, 40, my health is going to be pretty bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wonder about this because I wonder, okay, and I may be totally wrong on this, so I'm just putting that out there right now. Would you say that's more of a male perspective? Because I feel like I've talked to females and I feel like the majority that I've talked to, at least for me, they are very conscious of like, oh, well, I know I need to lose X amount of weight, or, oh yeah, I've been trying to do this or that, or I'm trying this.
But is it really trying, or is it the talk about the latest diet and the latest thing, and is it really trying?
Is it
or
like
is it just
talking about it versus doing it? I don't know. I would like to believe that they're not lying about that and they actually are trying and that they're doing something. Now, yeah, there is a difference between saying like, I'd like to do something like that versus, oh, I'm doing XYZ. So I mostly heard people say like, I'm trying to do this or that. Or, you know, this is what I'm doing every day, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I've heard, sure, of course, I've heard people, women say that, yeah, I'd love to do this, but blah, blah, blah. And yeah, we all have moments where we make an excuse for ourselves and say, you know, kind of cop us out of something. I've definitely done the same. So, but I just wonder that kind of perspective because I feel like, at least, again, based on the women that I've talked to, they're more conscious of this. At least saying, no, I like need to do blah, blah, blah. Even if they're not doing it, they like say it versus this sounds more like an acceptance, like, well, you know, I'm just getting up there. You know, it's rare that I feel like I've ever heard a woman say that. I feel, again, that's where, it's an interesting conversation. That's why I bring it up too, because, and I'm curious what you guys have to say and what you guys have heard, but, so I have a group, a Facebook group, a private group, where we share different health tips and, you know, recipes and all sorts of different encouragement and things. And one thing that sometimes comes up, or I feel like is sometimes a conversation, is that women seem to be so much more conscious of self-care as a broad umbrella. And again, it's not all women, it's just, you know, a broad umbrella than men. And I'm just curious, what have you found to be true in that?
I mean, again, sometimes, you know, we've talked about these things before, you have these social things that you say and it's just like a conversation thing, you know, where maybe there's nothing really behind it, like, oh man, I really, like if you're going out to play football or basketball, you hear people saying like, oh, I'm so sore, it's just not like it used to be, or I'm not 21 anymore. And it's like, yes, but you're 30, you're not 80. Like, you know, you're not,
right.
And people kind of overemphasize these things. And I feel like a lot of people, it's kind of the same thing as the person who thinks that, you know, lived in high school was the glory days. It's right. Like, what are you striving for now? Like, I get it. Maybe you were awesome in high school. Maybe that was really cool.
Sure,
but you're still a young, especially now with all the health advancements, 30 is young. 30 is, you know, I feel better now than I felt when I was 21. And that's not to say I'm some shining example. I'm not where I want to be. But physically, hasn't been that deterioration. And has that been, you know, I don't know what to attribute all that to. Probably some of it is we're not chasing around kids right now. And I think people who have children have a lot more on their plate. So I want to be graceful with that and understanding of that people who have kids have a lot more to deal with. But we've talked about the importance of how we talk. And I feel like, at least from a guy's perspective, a lot of the people I've heard, it is almost this inevitability that I'm continuing to decline. I can't be as active as I want to be or as I used to be. And that, you know, I'm just sliding, you know, trying to delay this. I'm slowly sliding down this mountain.
Delaying the inevitable.
Yeah, delaying the inevitable. Eventually, you know, when I hit 40, I'm probably just not even going to be able to do much. And instead of living our lives through what we're able to do physically, then people start living their lives through what they see athletes do. So instead of me going and playing basketball on Saturdays, I'm watching somebody else play basketball. Instead of here in Tampa, a big thing is hockey. Instead of me going out and running a 5K, I'm watching the Lightning play. And I'm living vicariously through those people and then maybe even my children, instead of I still living through me. And I still have things to achieve, and I still have things to overcome, and I still have something left in the tank. And you know, you see people running ultra marathons when they're 50, 60 years old. You see people doing things, and at least, you know, maybe this is just indicative that I need to get some more better friends. But a lot of people, I don't mean it in a bad way, but I need to hang around different people. A lot of people that I hear talk, it's like this, you know, my best days are behind me. And I think that's very dangerous to talk about, especially in the physical space, where those things that you're telling yourself eventually are going to become reality. And it's very easy to talk yourself into, well, you know, if my best days are behind me, why should I even care that much about staying healthy? If, you know, I'm going to, in 5 more years, I probably can't run anyway. Why should I go outside and run now?
Right.
And so I think we have to be very conscious of those discussions, because if we don't use our body, if we don't move it, it's going to get worse.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very interesting discussion for sure. And there's a woman that I really admire and love. And I actually don't know how old she is quite, but I think she's in her 50s. But she always says, the rest of my life will be the best of my life. And she's always, I appreciate that phrase, because she's always looking forward to what's next and not living in the past where she was. And she's always looking for the next. Not to say that she's just looking for the next best thing, but she's always looking ahead to see how she can be better and be more present for her family and for her business and all these different things that she's a part of. And she's actually entering her second marriage. And so she's always looking for how she can show up better in the next section of her life, as opposed to, like you said, kind of living backwards and focusing on the past.
I think that's a good segue into another question I had or another comment that I'd like you to comment on as well. That does mean, you know, you hear about athletes, especially as they get older. I think LeBron, I forget the figure now, but recently somebody said that, you know, he spends over $1 million on his body, you know, in nutrition and chiropractors and probably, you know, whatever other stuff, functional type medicine, getting, you know, cupping, whatever it is. So there is going to be an investment, especially as you get older, to maintain and continue to grow. Even if you're not doing anything extremely athletic, there is still going to be an investment. And so what investments have you made health-wise that you think might be beneficial to other people, or that we've made as a group, or you've made specifically to get your health on the right path?
Are you meaning physically, just not like mentally? Because there's so many different aspects of health that I've made sure to invest in, and I know you've encouraged me to invest in, which I am really grateful for. And I feel like, you know, as a spouse, you have an incredible opportunity to encourage your spouse in a really significant way in that. But, you know, definitely supplements and going to see people who we've in the past gone to somebody who does muscle testing and is incredible with supplements and helping you in that area. I go to a functional medicine doctor, and she's fantastic. I really love her approach. She is an MD as well, but she's really focused on the whole person and really looking at starting with supplements before jumping into medications. I've also gone to massage therapists and chiropractic. I've been going to a chiropractor for years now. It's been huge. Really, really highly recommend that. And also massage therapists. When I was going through grad school, I would go to the chiropractor and the massage therapist every other week, because that's how important it was for me to feel good. Because I was just even thinking about this again the other day. I don't know how I would have gotten through my grad degree without that. Because in undergrad, I had so many issues with my back. And it got better over time. I actually, my parents helped me to work with a personal trainer for almost my entire undergrad to make sure that my back and my core were really strong, so that I wasn't causing further damage to my back. So a lot of things there. And then, you know, the last few years now that I'm kind of on a better health journey, I've really been investing in using better products, like I said, on and in my body. And I'm just gonna be super honest, almost none of these times was my first instinct, like, yeah, let me invest all this money or all this time into these things. But something we were talking about before this is like, now you have to weigh, like, if I don't invest in this, then how am I going to show up? Or how am I going to expect things to be better in that way? And then consistently working out now, taking away a lot of the barriers. And I go to a bar gym that I love. I've done yoga for years, practiced yoga for years. I could kind of go on and on, but
yeah, I mean, like you said, it's not easy to look at the bill and be like, wow, we spent how much on supplements, doctors, whatever.
Right.
But just like any other investment, you have to look at your body that way.
Yeah.
And
you only get one body.
Yeah.
If you don't, not like you get another one.
If you don't have your health discounting your spiritual health, then what else is there? It doesn't matter if you have 5 homes, 10 cars.
Right.
If you can't move freely, if you have pain every time you walk, then what do you have?
And you're dumping chemicals into your body and you're just like, oh, it's fine. Yeah, you may not see the damage now, but are you going to see it in 20 years? You might.
Yeah.
And that's where, we've opted not to spend as much on other things because we've tried to really pour into do preventative measures. Mm-hmm. There's a particular supplement that we like to take on a pretty regular basis. And when we were living in Indiana, it was especially critical because I had 25 students coming in and out of this house or in and out of our apartment. And it was a lot. And, kids, they get sick and stuff a lot. And so for us to stay healthy, it was really, really important. And because we were both in grad school, we were juggling a lot. And so... And now I've started to have kids come in again and take lessons, but we just know keeping that supplement on hand is just so critical for us staying as healthy as we possibly can and kind of leaning into that. And so, yes, it's a little bit pricier, but it's, okay, what kind of investment are we making into our health and how we're showing up? Because if we're more healthy, guess what we can do? We can go and serve people better. We could help them move or bring them a meal or teach a study or whatever it is. Just be present for somebody when they're going through something. Bring them something that they need, right? Like you can't show up for the people that you need, be more present for each other. You can't do that if you're not in the place that you need to be physically and health-wise.
So getting close to wrapping it up, what do you think is, this may be another stepping on toes one, what do you think is the responsibility between a husband and wife to stay healthy for each other? As far as being attractive to each other, do you think that's something that's important or no?
Are you meaning, so like, in order for them to feel,
should I want to, do I have responsibility to stay healthy, physically as attractive as possible? Is that part of my responsibility as a husband to you and vice versa?
Discounting situations where, your body is just failing because of an illness or something like that, because, there's only so much you can do in those situations. I do think that falls under the umbrella of doing whatever you can to stay physically healthy for your relationship. It's no different than your responsibility to help take care of somebody when they're sick. How can you take care of somebody else if you're in such bad shape? We have a lot of responsibilities as husband and wife to each other. And if you're not in a physical shape to be able to fulfill some of those responsibilities, then that's still a part of it, So I don't know. I hesitate with the attractive thing because I feel like this is another conversation, but like attractiveness is very personal and is also like, for me, it's not just how the person looks on the outside, but on the inside, which apparently Matt disagrees with. But this is something we often talk about. But if I'm staying in great physical health and you came to me and said, I'm just not attracted to you anymore, then it won't matter what kind of, we know it won't matter what kind of physical shape I'm in because you're still not attracted. You know what I mean? So I think part of that discussion with attractiveness is a choice. Like you choose to be attractive to your spouse, even though at some point you're 80, it's like you have to choose your spouse, right? Like you can't just go after a 20-year-old model if you're trying to stay true to your marriage, so that's where the attractive side of things, I think, is I don't know if I appropriately answered the question, but I think some of that is choice. And then some of that is like, yes, if you can't physically fulfill some of those responsibilities, if you're not doing what you can to show up as attractively as you can, I think there's something to be said for, okay, that's not fulfilling that part of the relationship the way that you could. And that could really add to your relationship if you are putting in the work physically.
All right. So then I guess my last question would be, just kind of wrapping it up, what would you advise somebody who isn't in a place that they feel really healthy right now, or maybe there is some guilt or some of that self-loathing that we talked about at the beginning? What would you advise them as like your first steps to getting on the right track?
Personally, I think it starts in your mind. I think it starts with, okay, not I am, not just focusing on I am so overweight, I am so frustrated, I am so, but focusing on where I'm going. Okay, yeah, okay, this may be where you are, but okay, I'm focusing on, okay, moving forward, I'm going to do X. And really shifting your mindset that way. Like, I'm not stuck in this, not a fixed mindset, but a growth mindset. One that says, I can change my circumstance, or I can change how I show up. I can change, like, this is my current circumstance, but my future circumstance can look different. And believing that it can look different for you. And then start thinking of, like, write down 3 things that you know you could do every day differently than you do right now. Like, a lot of the time, it's not like we don't know what to do. It's like we just are unclear about what to do next, kind of thing. And so I think getting clear on, like, could you drink half your body weight in ounces of water every day? Could you make that shift? Could you start walking 30 minutes a day? Or could you, I don't know, do another exercise that you enjoy 30 minutes a day? Could you swap out something like your breakfast? Could you, instead of eating pancakes and eggs and bacon or whatever, swap it out for a protein shake? Or what are those oatmeal bowls that you like? The overnight oats or something like that, where it's a healthier option with higher fiber. That's kind of where I would start.
Yeah, I think, a couple of things you touched on, maybe I'll spin off of a little bit. I would say, yeah, it does start in your mind. You have to see the possibility of where you can be, because sometimes we would get so stuck that we think this is all I'm ever going to be.
Yeah.
And that can be just overwhelming. You can't see what is possible. And so you have to start seeing that in your mind.
And believing it for you.
That, yeah, that it can be, the difference, it can be extraordinary. Mm-hmm. And then, I think it takes being humble enough to realize you can't do this by yourself. That because you've been, in all likelihood, you've been living a certain way for a long time, and you're in a pattern, and you've probably tried over and over, at least at some point, to change. Yeah. And you have to be humble enough to say, I need help with this. Yeah. Whether that's a health coach, whether that's even, like I talked about before, having somebody you're accountable to, that I'm going, hey, so-and-so, I'm committing to walking 30 minutes a day. Right. You text me or call me at 30 minutes. And if I don't, there has to be some kind of either penalty or something, or that such strong connection, you don't want to disappoint that person. Yeah. That hey, I don't want them to call me and I can't let them down. Right. There has to be that accountability. And I think it does take humility, and it takes dropping your ego to do that, to say, I can't do this on my own. And we talk about that a lot in Christianity as well. What is the point of, we're all sinners. We can't get to heaven on our own. That's the whole thing. Right. So you have to be humble and say, if I really want to change, I'm not just, talking, crap to myself about it. If I really do want this change, then I'm going to have to do something different than I've tried in the past. And then it takes small effort. You don't have to start huge. Yeah. Small efforts, small steps are still moving forward. And the other thing I would say is, it doesn't matter. Try to find something you like. For me, I run and stuff and work out so I can play basketball and football, because I like those, and I know that the working out is going to help those. Exactly. I do certain things so I can run obstacle course races. Not all of it's fun. Now, some of those things are more fun to me, But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's fun or not. You still have to do it. This may just be a thing that you don't like, but then you have to tie it to another benefit. Because I walk 30 minutes a day, I'm enhancing the chance of spending more time with my spouse. Because I eat healthy every day, I enhance the chance that I can spend time with my grandkids, or I can feel better to do these activities that I do like. Not everybody is going to love eating healthy and exercising, and that's okay, but that doesn't minimize your responsibility. You still have to do it. We have to do things we don't like. That's part of being an adult. That's part of discipline. If it was all fun, then we would all have exactly what we wanted. But that's what separates the people who are successful from not in any avenue. It's that they did the things that they didn't really love doing for the end result. And we have to get that in our mind.
I totally agree. It reminds me of a phrase that we have in Arbonne where this one woman always points out that she's like, at a certain point and a certain level in Arbonne, you qualify for a cash award to be able to go toward a white Mercedes of your choice, as long as it's in your name. And so she goes, if it were easy, then, then they would give you a white bicycle instead of a white Mercedes. And I think about LeBron, like, most people aren't willing to put that kind of time, not just the money, but also that time into his health, and let alone the money every year. And he's investing in his body in a way that somebody who is just your average person wouldn't. And so, and part of that, yes, is his career and his field. But part of that is he has such a high priority of your body. And I don't think that your priority should suddenly be your body over everything else. But like Matt was just saying, think about the end result. Think about what it's going to lead to that is going to give you more to be able to be with your family, your friends, doing the activities that you love, serving other people, whatever it is that gets you fired up, it's going to help lead you to those things. And I love that you touched on habit stacking. James Clear touches on this in his book, Atomic Habits, where, when you have one healthy habit and you stack it on another healthy habit, like let's say that you walk 30 minutes and as a reward afterwards, you call a friend or something that you and tell them about how your walk was, or whatever it is, like something where you're attaching those two things, then it's really helpful for your body to want to keep doing those things. And then when you start walking and you feel better, then you're going to want to do other things. Like when you feel good about one thing, you want to start doing other things and other things and other things that are healthy. And so it's not just like one day Matt and I just woke up and we were just like doing all the things we're doing now. We started stacking these little habits one on top of the other. Like every morning I make a 32-ounce water bottle filled with fizz and water, and I drink that pretty much in my first little bit of the morning, because that's a habit, not because I suddenly just one day woke up and started doing it. It's I started doing it a little bit over time. And then I keep a water bottle with me all the time because I started doing that habit little by little over time and started tracking that. And then that led to other healthy habits. And there's always going to be things, like you said, that are going to be frustrating or not where you're good, not something you're good at yet, but what is the end result? What is it, is it going to be worth it to you? Think about what it's going to mean because you chose to be disciplined in that moment.
Yeah. Like I used the analogy of a vehicle before, and it's the same. Our bodies are a vehicle. They take us where we want to go. Or like a key, it unlocks doors for you. Your health unlocks doors for you that you wouldn't be able to get into. Right. And you feel so much better. I mean, I remember, I don't know if this was high school or even before, probably before even, but having heartburn in the morning because I ate some junk food. Yeah. That's a horrible feeling. Yeah. And yet I did that consistently. And I imagine people who eat unhealthy have that consistently. Burning in your body, a gross feeling, like over and over. And when you do that to ourselves and feeling groggy, your hands and your feet swollen because you ate a bunch of food that wasn't good for you. I mean, right. Your body is saying, I don't want this. It's not good for me. And because that momentary fix or whatever, we do it, you're going to feel better. You're not just going to feel better physically. You're going to feel better mentally. And you're building up that self-discipline muscle. And our physical fitness is so tied to our psychology and how we feel about ourselves.
Yeah.
And if we just start taking small steps, you're going to feel so much better. You're going to, again, getting those little wins on a daily basis, you're going to feel so much better in all areas of your life that I think it's just a really, really important thing that we could talk about for hours probably.
Yeah, and speaking of which, it's been almost an hour, so we should probably wrap this up. But we appreciate you guys sticking with us, and that you guys are continuing to support us, and we look forward to being back with you guys. We're actually going to take next week off because it's 4th of July, and we're going to be having a little bit of celebration going on. So we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Bye, have a good night.
Take care.